15 actions that lower your social status. Some of the things we do annoy people around us, and they affect the social status we have in the eyes of those who happen to be around us. And there are 15 things that instantly lower it. You neglect hygiene. Hardly anyone wants to socialize with a person who smells bad. Bad breath, worn out clothes, stale socks, all these little things that come from poor hygiene undermine social status. Poor self-care gives an invisible signal to those around you that you don't take yourself seriously and don't like yourself. Not everyone will want to socialize with such a person. You're talking outright nonsense. People notice when a person talks about what he does not know, or tries to convince interlocutors of his rightness, positioning himself as something he is not. When you talk outright nonsense in an attempt to appear to be an expert, you lower your social status. Remember, there is no shame in not knowing something and admitting it. It is much more unpleasant to look like a fool trying to deceive others. You're talking about too personal topics. Some things are not meant to be shared publicly. And if you often talk about overly personal topics and ask questions about things that the person would like to keep private, you're undermining your social status. You should always maintain propriety and boundaries of decency when it comes to talking about personal topics. After all, there are times when crossing the line not only lowers your status, but also worsens your relationship with your interlocutors. You don't handle money well. Not knowing how to handle finances signals poor self-control and a lack of understanding of your own priorities. A person whose financial habits leave much to be desired is unlikely to have a high social status in the eyes of others. He seems unreliable, wasteful or, on the contrary, a cheapskate, which is also not too appreciated in society. You do not know how to stand up for yourself. The world treats you the same way you treat yourself. If you allow others to overreach yourself, you may get some sympathy, but not respect, and it determines how high your status in the social hierarchy is. Do not let anyone humiliate you or make others think that you can ride. Learn to fight back against bullies and be your own best advocate for yourself. You don't know how to read the room. Saying something at inappropriate times or trying to be funny when you shouldn't is a nuisance that can be caused by an inability to read the room, that is, to recognize which moment is appropriate for certain behavior and which is not. If you want to increase your social status, learn to recognize when your actions are appropriate and when they are not. You are not in control of your emotions. When someone complains constantly, can't control themselves when they need to, flares up with anger instantly, or is unpredictably violent, their social status is low. People don't like those who don't know how to keep their emotions under control, and make those around them feel bad by barely appearing in the room. You are prone to excessive behavior. If you often overindulge in important matters, your social status may not be as high as you'd like it to be. For example, if you drink too much alcohol, overeat, hold strong beliefs about sensitive topics and defend them with frothing at the mouth without taking into account other people's opinions. The problem with excesses is that they make you look like you're not the best person, even if you have a whole host of wonderful and worthy qualities. You have no purpose in life. You've probably met people at least once who are just floating through life and not striving for anything. They just are, and there is nothing interesting about it. Many people look down on those who have no enthusiasm and goals, and consequently, if you have no plans for your life and no ambition to make them a reality, your social status will be lower than you expect. You are cruel. Any kind of cruelty is low status behavior, and it doesn't matter if you show it to animals or people you somehow consider inferior. It brings nothing but suffering, and only a low status person would hurt someone for no reason. You are disregarding the rules in someone else's home. We all have rules that we follow in our own homes. It's frustrating when someone breaks them, whether intentionally or not. If you go to someone's house to visit, remember that you are not on your own property and you should behave accordingly. Even though you are a guest, you should not impose your preferences on your host or ignore the rules he has set. Otherwise, you may be labeled as low class and never be invited to a friendly gathering again. You do one thing with your personality. You've probably been able to meet people who make one thing the core of their identity. For example, vegans who shout about their eating habits on every corner, or people who are passionate about fitness and fitness alone. A person's personality is multifaceted. That's what makes it interesting. And by flaunting only one of its parts, you lower your social status, as well as deprive yourself of a noble share of potential interlocutors. You lack basic life skills. When a person in his 30s doesn't know how to pay utility bills or taxes, one doubts how mature he is. The same thing happens when you meet people who can't make a doctor's appointment, change a light bulb, or perform other actions from the list of basic life skills. Such people seem unserious and unreliable, which negatively affects their social status. You go against everyone and you're wrong. It's one thing to go against the crowd and be right. Society will call you a visionary, a good businessman, a role model. But if you go against those who are right, you'll be labeled a fool and lower your social status, especially if your decision affects not only your well-being, but also the happiness of others. You don't care about what's going on around you. A dripping faucet in the bathroom, dust on the table, a pile of unresolved tasks. A person with low status doesn't care what's going on around him. He most often resigns himself to discomfort and inconvenience, only not to make efforts to change something. Of course, such lack of initiative, laziness and disrespect for himself is noticeable from the outside, which makes others treat him badly.